move he's made to Sapien Nitro. So he's promised me that you'll see more biggies moving to digital now. I think that's the first of a move, and he's a trendsetter in that way. So Pops has moved from Leo Burnett to Sapien Nitro, where he's currently the Chief Creative Officer. The other gentleman on the panel is Ajay Gehlot, a dear friend, the Executive Creative Director, ECD for Ogilvy and Mather, 20 years in the business, has some great campaigns under his belt, Imperial Blue, Men Will Be Men, we've all seen those, Sprite, and how many will remember the polio campaign, the Do Bund? Yes, exactly, so recall acha hai. And obviously the Murthy campaign for Voltas that has turned around the fortunes of that air conditioning company. So the topic we are discussing today is, do you have a digital imagination? And as we all know, we are living in this big bad world of the internet where the consumer has a voice, and a voice that demands to be heard. There are no shortcuts. If I don't like something, I'm most free to voice it. If I like something, I'll also voice it. And marketers and advertisers who are traditionally used to living a one-way street, I'd do a campaign, and I could afford to kind of sit back in 3 months and then do the post and figure out the post and get on with life, are now faced with the harsh reality of getting live feedback, bang on right there on the advertising campaigns or any communication they do, and a no-holds-barred kind of communication. So the feedback is real, it's real time, real world, real feedback. So what I wanted to ask both the gentlemen here was, first of all, as a statement, Pops, I'd like to start with you. Do you really agree with the statement that marketing or advertising was always a one-way street where, advertisers or agencies could sit back and manipulate, post, and kind of get away with it earlier? What's your view?
Yeah, it was, advertising always existed in two worlds before internet, which is the emotional and physical world. Physical world is you go buy a product and then you use it. And emotional world is, that's what we manipulate, find some consumer insights, desires, needs, and then glorify, do nice, beautiful stories around them, and then create a personality, likability. The stories would touch with people if you were to have a powerful insight, and then you make people cry, laugh, all kinds of emotions, then you have an emotional connect with the consumers. So it was pretty easy to really do that. And now, after internet, maybe far more last 5-6 years, when people who are using internet and the new consumers have become far more active than passive. So that is where the trouble has begun, people not looking at television. Mm-hmm. So how do you build that relationship? Brands started existing in a third world, which is the virtual world. So that is where the problem is, you can't hide behind, because the third world is as important, because all the commerce is happening in the third world, and people exist there, they actually live in the third world. So at times, the physical world has been collapsed. The friendly, painful, your grandfather's friend or retired your father's friend as an insurance agent is dead. Policy Bazaar tells you what to do, and then there is no emotional contact with any of those. So the world is changing, the consumers are changing, the brands are changing. The adoption to this new world is what people are far ahead of either the marketers or creators. It is almost like the gap between me and my children. Mm-hmm. They're far ahead of me, and then I am only catching up with them. However fast I run, still they'll be a little ahead of me. That's the challenge, So that you can't hide behind. You have to stop, you have to huff and puff, and then agree that you are only trying to catch up with them, they're far ahead of you. So that's a very harsh reality, because the marketer ego or the creator's ego of I know the consumer, I know everything, I'm in control of my brand and my people is gone. Now you are not in control, they are in control. Now you are trying to claim your part of control from them.
Very well said. Ajay, what are your views on this?
No, pretty much what Pops has said. One thing that we've noticed over the years is that people don't like being sold to. Now we are in advertising, we're in the thing of selling things. We sell things for our clients to consumers. People, if you look at the classic ads of the 50s, it just needed to show an illustration of a pretty girl with a Coke bottle and say, drink Coca-Cola. And people would go and drink Coca-Cola, you know. It was as simple as that. Then, like Pops was saying in our conversation around the 80s and much earlier in the US, when television came in, suddenly there was this new world. So people were still trying to catch up. You know, they still had those pitchmen who would come. You'd put a camera, they'd do their jig and go away. But then one strange thing happened. There was one thing which led to the burst of creativity, these stories, these emotional connects. There was one thing that changed it all. I mean, just as a quiz question, can anyone say what that one thing was in television history that changed the course of advertising? Okay, no one wants to take a shot.
Come on, guys, panelists, my co-panelists.
Okay, that one thing was the remote control. The minute the remote control came in, it gave the power in the hands of the consumers. They could zap a boring ad. So you had to be interested to hook them. And some sort of equivalent thing is happening in a much more complex way now. When you go on to the internet, when you go on to so much of interactivity, when you have, you know, they've taken far more control than they took with that one little remote control. You know, there they could just say, I don't want to listen to you. Right. Now they can say, I don't like you because you're this, you're that, you're this. And they can tell their friends and they can rip you to shreds. And the control has gone to them, increasingly.
That's very interesting. Actually, I think the remote control analogy is a very interesting. I mean, one would never think of that, Ajay. That's a very good one. So, given control, Pops, there's a new movie you just released called Chili Paneer. Anyone watched the movie called Chili Paneer? You should go Google it and see it. And Pops, would you want to tell us about the way you've given control to the viewer in that film? That's quite interesting, actually.
Yeah, actually, you know, as I was saying yesterday, I mean, before that, people are not willing to be passive. Mm-hmm. They want to be active. Entire younger generation, you know, we have witnessed that a couple of years back in a metaphorical way of Anna Hazare movement. I mean, they were not old freedom fighters who rallied around Anna. They were young people across the country who came out and then rallied. So that was a symbolic moment which actually said that this generation, the younger generation, are not willing to take things. They want to be actively take part in everything which is happening, which is true, which is completely true. And if you were to actually see in our space of telling brand stories, a story lived is better than a story told. That's the reason why we grudgingly, fearfully allow our children to go and then touch a candle. Because if you don't allow them to touch a candle, they will ever learn about fire. Mm-hmm. So anything which you experience, correct, is what stays with you. So gone are the days of actually seeing, you know, I've been part of making Akshay to Salman, to everybody jumping off buildings and aircrafts and everything. But today look at, you know, the success of Red Bull, you know. It is not Salman's story which people are interested in. It is their own story. If Ajay were to go and then do a bungee jumping, it interests me because I know him. So probably me sharing that is far higher. So how do you make content which makes people actively participate in that? So what we did was the earlier campaign, which was done by Cartwheel, I think. They did 4 episodes of these 2 characters called Asha and Ken. One is a graphic designer from Mumbai, the other one is a food blogger from Singapore. They both fall in love, they meet and they both fall in love, and then they discover their common passion. They check their jobs and then start a restaurant. Now, how do you take that story forward? Will they get married and then have 5 children? Correct? Will they break up and then find their love elsewhere? How do you actually move it forward? And they want to keep the same thing and then make people, it has a huge following. They said that how can you increase the participation? And so then what we said, we have to make people part of it. So what we did is we made people play one of the characters. So there is no Ken. So we made people play Ken, and then we shot the entire film through the eyes of the viewer. So the camera is the viewer, and then camera sits, you sit, camera moves, you move. And then there is no editing, correct? There is only one point of view. In cinema there are 3 points of view. There is absolutely no point of view, only one point of view, your point of view. So we made people play a role and then take different choices which happen in the story. So story has 8 endings, and then depending on the choices which you make, the story will conclude into that ending. Not only that, and the choices which you make determine the kind of person you are, and it predicts your personality, which is again go back and then share. So people, depth of engagement, if you were to see the average engagement level of a 3-minute or a 4-minute internet video film which we do is less than 20 seconds. You might have 2 million hits, but you actually see average time spent is less than 20 seconds. Then what are you achieving? Correct. The depth of engagement is far more important, and we managed to get 5.5 minutes average time spent. That means people have spent at least 1.5 journeys with the content. So that is far more challenging today. How do you make your story as people's story, and how can people's story become your story?
Ajay, so as a client, we've always had these discussions with agencies, and we've always, sometimes as a client, you find a challenge that a mainline agency finds it difficult to go 360. And because 360 now includes social and digital also. So the outdoor, print, TV, radio days are more or less gone. Those 4 are already there, but you've added social and digital now to it. And one's always, you'll normally see in all companies, you'll have a mainline agency and you'll have a digital agency. And the two, are not really connecting. In some cases they are, some cases they aren't. So how has that been as a challenge and learning for you? What do you all do at Ogilvy? How do you manage that for a client? And you've done something very good for Max recently, the second chance thing.
Right,
so how do you all work this out?
No, it is a challenge. Always this 360 offering is always a challenge to get people from diverse, backgrounds and specialties to gel together and work towards a common vision, it's always difficult, but it has to be done now. There is no getting around it, and so we are doing it. Agencies are trying to figure out how to do it. There are acquisitions happening, reverse acquisitions, like in the case of Sapient, Publicis advertising group has bought into it. Ogilvy India bought into a digital company called Pennywise in Hyderabad. So we are trying to get those synergies going. That is why they hired Pops from a mainline agency to come there and coach them and guide them on brands, and then to try and get some synergy going so that we can do work for this medium for our clients. So it is a challenge. It's a huge challenge, but I think people are getting their heads around.
Now there's one question, a bit of a controversial question, but open to both of you, please. So now with this entire real-time feedbacking happening, because you both are creative stalwarts in your own fields, does it make you work, at the risk of sounding provocative, a little harder, research far more than what you do earlier, test it even more, to use some tried and tested principles of old times? Because, just to use, there's a very popular campaign going on right now of an antiseptic brand. I won't name it because, but the fact is, it has its bunch of people who hate it. Some people say, okay, it has good recall. But if I was the marketing head, I can pick up feedback right from, or my CEO can pick up feedback right off YouTube, or my son can walk in and say, Dad, that film you made is getting blasted on YouTube. And the CEO can just be calling up the head of marketing and say, guys, you really messed this movie up. And earlier you could say, no, you just wait, Nielsen's doing the brand track score and scores are going to go up. And CEO was like, okay, kuch hoga yaar marketing, you guys figure out your own way. But now my son's walking into my room and saying, Dad, that commercial of yours, sorry, not working. But why suddenly 3,000 people have disliked it, bitched about it, this, that? So this is it's a very real problem right now. So obviously CMO will call up the agency and then you'll have your little battle happening. So how is this impacting the entire creative process for you?
For me, okay. Yes, now it has become fairly, feedback is instantaneous. You know, you have a film out, it's on, you put it out on YouTube, and you know, you have hundreds of thousands of comments. It's worse.
Everyone has an opinion in advertising.
Yeah, but it's actually worse if you have no comments. You know, then you say we've done something wrong. It hasn't touched anyone. So yes, how has it changed? I don't know if it has changed that much. It's just given us a much faster feedback mechanism qualitatively. So it's almost like a research tool, you know, for a very extremely sort of quick and dirty. You go, you can tell, okay, out of 10 people, 7 people are liking it, it's okay. 5 people are liking it, we must work harder next time. 3 people are liking it, pull it off YouTube.
What's your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, the much larger issue than a commercial, a television commercial has been ripped in social media.
Right.
That's what your question is. But the larger question is, you know, the entire people who were managing brands, and especially from the agency side, our responsibility ended when we delivered a communication, you know, which is likable, intent of purchase, you know, going up, and all the softer parameters. It's going up. The link scores are good, you know, connection to the brand, everything, and then, you know, we get our bonus and then we go home. If the bottle of Coke is not available, it's her problem. Correct? And if it is not chilled, it's her problem. It is never the problem of people who create the campaign. Because we are supposed to take the softer aspects and then do that. Commerce has never been part of it. You know, though, you know, when we started advertising 38 years back, you really made me younger by 4 years.
You asked me to do that.
Yeah. So sales was the only thing which we used to do. You know, all of us were creative salesmen. That's how we have been trained. But now with commerce and communication, both are coming together. Now the responsibility of the people who are creating communication is not just limited to softer aspect. You know, while I need to connect people emotionally, but I need to connect, you know, convert that attraction and desire and whatever I am doing to transactions in the same space. So people today, all that happens in only one medium. Does not matter how many screens I am using, but how do you convert, you know, you create a desire and you actually end up doing the transaction all within split second. You know, earlier the purchase cycle, you know, you do advertise and then create a need and a desire, and then you create another set of advertising in a different medium, you know, which gives you a lot more information. So you dig into the information, then you have another communication which actually allows you to make a choice that you are better than somebody else. Then again you have another impeller advertising, you know, it says that, you know, buy now there is 30% discount, and then you do another piece of advertising to reassure people. All this purchase process, depending on what you are, from 15 days for an FMCG to 3 months if you were buying a car. That was the process. Now everything is condensed into split second. Now how do you actually create it as much part of a creative person's job or a content creator's job or a campaign creator's job to convert that entire desire to transaction in the same space, and onus is on us to really see, are they buying it, are they getting it, what are they feeling at every part of the journey.
Consume, what are their feedback?
And you need, and today, you know, with very high analytics and big data which is available, you can see it live, a topography of what is happening to your products, and then how people are interacting at different places, and where are the gaps, and then where you can actually heighten things, and then, you know, make the experience far more favorable so that, you know, you convert into transactions. So the game has changed. The game has changed somebody ripping your television commercial because it has a old-fashioned radio jingle as a television commercial is only a small part of it. But the larger part of it, that is what the traditional agencies need to learn to take the onus of the entire integration. We feel integration is radio, TV, television, one digital 3-minute YouTube video is integration. It is not integration. Integration is business integration. Commerce, brand, communication, everything needs to be integrated. How do you bring in technology, consulting, and commerce, everything together, and then drive the business for clients? That is what they are seeking.
It's very interesting. So what you're almost actually saying is life has come a full circle. 38 years back, you were close to sales. I think somewhere we lost that plot. Advertising started working on its own zone. You had great looking films winning their awards, not probably contributing directly to sales all the time. And now this entire change through the internet is actually forcing you back to doing what advertising traditionally is supposed to do, increase sales.
Absolutely.
And you have metrics to measure and stuff like that. I think that's a very interesting way of putting it, Pops. Thank you so much. And now there's this new ad of this new Audi ad, 5-second ad. Anyone seen it in the audience? It's a very good example. So you all know YouTube doesn't charge you if you blip before 5 seconds. So Audi did this lovely innovative ad. It's again a very good example of digital imagination, where they had the Audi logo coming and said 0 to 60 seconds in 0 to 60 in X amount of seconds, Audi R8. And within 4.5 seconds, the ad's over. Gets your attention. It's really, really fast. And from the media spend perspective, Audi did this for free because YouTube couldn't charge them. So it's a very, so is there any examples, Ajay, Pops, and maybe you want to share some examples that you have in mind just for the audience?
There was this famous Whopper sacrifice thing, which was a lovely example of, again, of doing communication for digital natives, as opposed to merely adding interactivity and an extra screen, right? For instance, before that there was something called, I think it was for KFC, was it? The subservient chicken. So there was this guy, they had shot Burger King. So they had shot this chicken, and you could ask it to do things. You type dance, it will start dancing. Lie down, it will lie down. So there was that level of interactivity which you couldn't get earlier on television or the other media. But the Whopper sacrifice was something used a digital native insight. So basically what it was, I'm not entirely certain if I'm right on this, but basically it was that to get a free Whopper, which is a large Burger King burger, you had to sacrifice some of your Facebook friends. Okay, so if you sacrifice 30 friends, you get one burger, something like that. You get a coupon which you can then redeem and get a free burger. So it was using this insight that that Facebook friends are not real friends. Real friends you have maybe 5 in your life. Facebook friends I have some 750. Obviously they're not friends. Someone sends you a request, you accept, you send. So it's just it's
a fan club.
So they said, okay, let's use this. And in fact, this was such a huge campaign because it started a debate on the nature of online relationships. So it actually used behavior of digital natives, and increasingly, that is true digital communication. Yeah.
Any example you have?
No, I mean, only thing I say is, ideas. We applaud ideas. Why do you need ideas? You need ideas to solve problems in an innovative way. Each time a problem comes in, you face with that, you need a powerful idea to overcome that. I remember many years back, this was in 86 or 87 when VHS tapes came in. Then a lot of advertising used to happen on the cassettes. But nobody used to watch, they used to fast forward. Then as an experiment, Chax, that time my partner and then me, we went and edited a film in fast forward, 8x, because that's the maximum fast forward one can do, and then slow it down. So when you actually do 8x fast forward, it ran in real time. So you couldn't escape. Correct. So innovation is a compulsion. You know, when you get challenged, you have to innovate. And so all these are tactical things, you know, which you innovate, and then you upload ideas. You know, for instance, one of the reasons why I even joined Sapient Nitro is one beautiful campaign they did called "Best Job in the World."
Australia.
Queensland.
Yeah.
Who does not want a job like that? You know, everybody wants a job. 30,000 people actually applied, but close to 30 million people those days, you know, equivalent to maybe 300 million today, have actually watched that entire thing and then spread. So you need ideas. You know, the basic for everything is ideas. Push for ideas, then you will have joy. Like 5 seconds. You know.
Super. Any questions? I'll open up to the audience. We have a great bunch. Please.
Yeah. Pops, you talked about, you know, your son and you being a generation apart. In today's day and age, 5 years is a generation gap, right? And from a creative perspective, you've got to think about an idea that is finally going to sell, right? So the logical conclusion of everything has to be the sale, because that's how everything is measured. So with that in mind, how do you trigger the emotional triggers across these generations using the digital medium? And my second question to that is, everyone, you know, when the marketing head comes in to me with his budget, it's about how much he's going to spend on media. But when you look at creative, when he goes back to the creative agency, the production cost for every communication is escalating, because we're all talking about thinking creatively, about how do we create different touch points for different target audiences, being generations or whatever, or psychographic profiles. But who is thinking creatively about reducing the cost of the production? Because a production cost for a film is nothing below 50 lakhs or a crore, while the media spent on digital could be 50 lakhs. So how do you answer that, and how do you address that?
One is, you know, how do you actually understand if your consumers were to be 16-year-olds, if you are going to sell something to 16 to 18, the only way you can understand them is to surround yourself with 16 and 18-year-olds. Correct? Then you understand. You know, you have to listen to them far more carefully. That's the only way. You know, age does not matter. If you were to listen to your own children, then you become relevant to them, because you are forced to change to their thinking and start respecting their thinking. So once you have respect for their thinking and then collaborate with them, you can. Second is cost. You know, I think, you know, more money is not equivalent to more productivity. And then why do you need creative ideas? You know, if you go to a media agency or you go to any of the agencies who work on return on investment as a principle, you go and then spend 100 rupees, they will give you 100 rupees back. Then you say that I have well spent my 100 rupees. You go to a good financial wizard and then you say that, you know, I have got 100, they will give you 110 rupees, maybe 120. Maybe somebody like Reliance may give you 130 because they know ways to make money. But you need a creative idea to make 100 rupees work like 1000 rupees. So it is always that it is not the money which is constrained, that what do you do with that? It costs absolutely nothing if you were to trigger a conversation for people to do their own videos and then populate it. It costs nothing because you are not doing, people propagating your brand. So what is the trigger which you can give for people to really react is the challenge today. It is not the cost of production. If you produce that, what is that which, how many people are you going to inspire, and what is the content which they are going to throw back and how they multiply it. Amplification is not reaching effectively to a million people. Amplification is how do you make million people propagate your brand to 1,000 more million people.
Yeah, but so are people in the agencies being sensitized to this, when it comes to creative production, that you need to also look at?
See, the cost is when you actually look at television production, film production is where the cost comes from. But if you actually talk about content, what does it cost to really tweet? What does it really cost to make, Facebook posts? We still go and then do that standard 3 Facebook posts because we don't want to give the governance back, and then we don't want people to do and then react real time. We want to keep the control all the time because we are afraid that somebody might misuse.
Yeah, but that's the only reason that marketers like us are not using mainline agencies, but then going to smaller agencies who are thinking more creatively because their back is to the wall. And
As I said, necessity is the mother of invention. If you say that I've got 2 lakhs and then make a film, and then you take your Nokia camera or you take your iPhone and then you make a bit of film, wine costs nothing, 6 seconds. People actually make films
which my mainline agencies will refuse to do.
because it is connected. It is connected with revenues. It is connected with heavyweight creative guys who they pay quite a lot of money. So that's where the entire hunger is.
Also, sorry. Also, this cost thing, it's always a challenge. There's a story about this many years back when in the heydays of rediffusion, there used to be a gentleman called Kamlesh Pandey, who was a legendary creative director, and so they used to have a brand of television called Uptron. I wonder, most of you look too young to have known Uptron. It was a black and white TV done by the UP government. So Bombay was a very important market. Naturally, those days televisions are big ticket items, not like now. So the sales in Bombay were not happening. So somebody briefed Rediffusion and Mr. Kamlesh Pandey that sales in Bombay city are not happening. We have some ridiculously low amount of money, and we have to make sure that sales go up. So like Pops was talking about the solution and the idea being everything. Given a problem, a good mind will come up with a solution. So his solution was very interesting. What he did was, he got them to hire taxis all across Bombay city, and he put empty boxes of Uptron on top, and he made Rediffusion people go all over the city. Dispatch guys who had to go somewhere, they were happy sitting in taxis. So for about a week, everybody in Bombay saw a taxi with a Uptron. That, yes. Also, what it was supreme understanding of the Indian mindset. Nobody wants to take a chance because it was a big ticket item, and they said everybody is buying an Uptron, so I'll buy an Uptron. It's safe. It's genius. So it's not about the cost; it's about the idea.
Ritika, you have a question? We'll just take 2 more questions.
Yeah, very simple one. But you were just talking about how things have changed over the years. Now there's much more complexity in terms of channels of communication and formats of communication. But as a marketer, I think objectives for me as for marketing have remained the same, largely either to switch customers from another brand, or to drive share, or to drive awareness, penetration. Do you think with this change in technology of delivery of creative, have the creative objectives changed? And if they have, are there new matrices by which they are being measured?
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting question because the earlier metrics of your link test, connection with the brand, intent to buy, frequency of buying, usage, likability, brand love, all those scores. Today, how do you judge? There are 2 parts to creative in this entire new world. One is the affinity for the brand. You can't, there is no link test done for digital campaigns yet. If there is anyone from Unilever, probably they might implement it tomorrow morning. But how do you measure? And then we talk about, today we say brands are equivalent to experience, and experience is equivalent to brands. It is the experience which you have with the brand is the brand today. So now the new matrix, which people are trying to really gauge and then come up with, is how do you gauge the experience quotient? Has the experiences have turned positive, have they turned negative, and then how far you have been able to influence those experiences, and then how, because unless you convert that experience, because that experience is converting into premiumness, into brand affection or brand love. And what are brands? Brands today, are losing everything. They're becoming commodities again in a very transactional way. Look at airlines. Do you pay premiumness to any airline or to any hotels? Sorry, you're in the hotel industry, but Google has democratized everything. And then what happens to the brand values? How do you build a brand in a predominantly transactional medium where people are residing? Experiences create brands. So you need to gauge that, and that's a new metric which is coming to measure the experience which you can create right from attraction to transaction.
Okay, we'll just say a quick one because I think we're running late, but please, quickly.
Hello, Pops. My question is that, like you said, current trend is that integration lies in integrating advertising with the transactions. This is the new metrics for business cycle. So where does the brand loyalty stand in this new metrics? Can brand not afford to bank on loyalties in this new setup? What do you think on that?
Yeah, loyalty is the most important thing. Loyalty comes, not with loyalty points. That is how loyalty programs are measured. If you ask seasoned marketers, sitting here with lots of Procter experience, loyalty comes with liking a brand, loving a brand. And then if you like somebody in real life, you are willing to forgive them for their mistakes. We love Cadbury so much that when it has actually put worms inside, we forgive them, and then still we buy and then give it to our children. Correct? We forgive because the affinity and then the connection is so high. Now today, how can you build that affinity? If you don't build that affinity, you are a commodity again. Brands are supposed to, one of the important thing is to command that premiumness. No matter what, I will pay the 2 rupees more to have only you, nobody else. That's loyalty. That is commanding premiumness. Today, I dare anybody paying $2,000 more to an economy seat on Jet Airways vis-a-vis any other airline. Will anybody pay 2,000 more?
No.
If you get an Indigo next to you? But where is loyalty? Where is brand affinity? Is it a brand, or it is just a commodity of aviation? So that is where the dichotomy is, and that is what most of the marketers are learning, how in this transactional world, in the cyber world, how do you build that emotional affinity with the brand? So it has to happen with every touch point, every intersection which you get an opportunity to build a positive experience so that they really like you and then wanting to carry your message.
Thank you so much, Jay. Thank you so much, Pops.